Illogical. Wait, what?
Hey everyone, welcome to my basement, office, workshop, whatever this is. It's where the magic happens. Now, you might be wondering why I've decided to start a YouTube channel. Well, I'm always taking on new projects and I thought it would kind of be interesting this time to document it. At the moment, it's primarily for myself. I really don't think I'm going to get any viewers, but who knows? You know, if people start watching, I'll keep making videos and maybe I'll inspire a few people along the way. So let's have a talk about this project in particular. I've been living here near the stunning Brisbane water for quite some time now, but I never really made it out on the water. I grew up near here at a smaller lake up to the north, and so being around the water was always something that was a big part of my life. There was always a kayak or a canoe or a tinny lying around, and I spent countless hours out there in the water. But despite that, and despite literally living a stone's throw from the water, I've never gotten around to getting my own kayak or my own runabout and getting out on the lake. I looked into it a few times, and every time I did, something came up. I moved on. I decided, there wasn't space to keep it, which is true. There isn't space. This is a very small place. Recently, I was watching some reruns of Parks and Recreation, and I was inspired by my man crush, Ron Swanson. I mean, who wouldn't be? Those steely blue eyes, those arms, you would feel so safe, him spooning you. Anyway, I digress. I knew I couldn't tackle a cedar strip canoe. I don't have the skill, I don't have the workshop, and frankly, I'm just not man enough. But I stumbled upon a project I thought I could handle. Lap stitch boat building. It seemed like a perfect solution. I still got to make something, but it wasn't anywhere near as hard as making a cedar strip canoe, and I decided to take the leap and purchased a 12-foot wooden kayak model. Now, what is lap stitch boat building? Well, it's a method of boat building where the pieces are cut out of a piece of plywood using with a CNC machine, like a big giant jigsaw puzzle. The pieces are prepared, sanded down, gotten ready, and then stitched together with copper wire to form the shape of the hull before being reinforced with fiberglass and epoxy to provide strength, rigidity, and waterproofing. So stick around. I'll be trying my hand at making a kayak using the lap stitch method in my woefully inadequate workspace. I'll take you along from the journey, from receiving the kit in the box all the way through to hopefully getting on the water without sinking to the bottom, or possibly sinking to the bottom. It'll be funny either way, so let's go.
All right, so, hey Luna, beep beep. So, my package has arrived today from Denman Marine. This is again my wood duck Chesapeake Lightcraft kayak. I'm pretty excited to get going on this project. I do have to wait for the resin still to get here. The resin has not yet arrived, but I do want to crack this open and just make sure there's no damage, and let's have a look what it looks like.
So opening it up and going through everything seems to be in good order. The seat's on back order, but all the pieces of wood seem to be available. Got my quality control dog coming in there, checking things out. You'll also notice that some of the pieces there, the longer piece are cut in half of what's called a puzzle joint. And unfortunately for me, the bottom stern panel puzzle joint had a snapped head here. You can see that. I did contact Denman Marine about that, and the guys were absolutely fantastic. They told me that it was highly likely that the piece would be able to be salvaged, but if I wanted to, they would send me a new piece out. So at that time, I did ask them to send a new piece out, and I just got on with it. You can see here as well that a lot of the smaller pieces were left attached to the piece of wood they were cut from. That's just to make sure that none of these delicate ends like this are damaged. Now, I tried a few ways of separating these. I tried first with a utility knife, as you can see here, and after that I broke out the jigsaw and had to go at it like that as well. But I was just a little bit worried about the jigsaw knocking things around, and the utility knife took too long. So I went back to the manual where it pretty much states that you should use a chisel to do this. So fine, no problem. We got out the chisel. Here's a close look what little toggles look like, and all you need to do is just pop that nice sharp chisel against the end, couple of taps on top, and then it just comes straight away, and it just leaves the nicest edges. Give that a bit of a sand afterwards. A lot of these pieces are going to be beveled off after this anyway, and then it was just a case of doing that a bunch more times, probably a couple of hundred times to get all these pieces off, or sorry, all these toggles off all the different pieces that were in the kit.
The next step is to join all of the pieces together so we have the full length of the boat. As you've seen before in some of the previous shots, the pieces are cut in half or half, and they've been cut with a puzzle joint or looks like a jigsaw piece that's going to go together. When those parts go together, we're going to lay some fiberglass tape over the top of those puzzle joins and join it together. Now, I am absolutely no expert in any of this, and especially working with resin. It was actually really my first time working with fiberglass and resin. So last night I created this piece here where I literally got my coping saw and just cut a rough line across and glued it together with just a piece of fiberglass tape and some resin on there. Now, I wasn't expecting this to really have any strength because there's no puzzle joint here. You can see the cut is just a wavy cut that I did on this. But I was impressed, I have to say. Like this piece here, I can just bend that. It won't, the wood is bending well before the actual join. And I've been doing this all morning. I haven't been able to help myself. I've been doing it this way, I've been doing it back this way. Obviously this way, there's no tape on this side. The strength is mainly in that bend, so eventually you can see the flex there now as well. Eventually it's going to break, and again, I've done this many times. I was very, very impressed. Broke the wood. Very impressed with, I mean, even that. I've broken the wood before I've broken the fiberglass. So pretty crazy. Now, if you remember, when I unpacked this thing, one of the puzzle joints was broken, and I was really pretty upset about that at the time. I did contact the guys at Denman Marine, and they were absolutely fine with cutting out a new piece and sending it to me. But they did mention that usually the puzzle joints are salvageable. And based on this experiment, I would say they're 100% salvageable. I can't see the problem with one single one being broken off, putting this thing together, and given the Denman Marine are down in Tasmania, I can't remember the name of the town, and I am many hundreds of kilometers away in a different direction across Bass Strait. It's going to take considerable time for them to get it for me and to me, sorry, the new one to me, and I'm just not sure that I'm willing to wait when that's from my first go. You know, when this is put together properly, we're going to have this on the inside, and then later we're going to cover this whole outside with sheets of fiberglass and resin, and this inside again as well. So is it going to cause a problem? I really don't think it is. Having said that, the instructions call for you to place the puzzle joints together on a sheet of plastic, saturate the 2 inches either side of the puzzle joint, put down your tape and saturate the tape. Now, to be fair, it does say to continue to mix the silica powder until the epoxy reaches like a mustard consistency. I don't think that I added enough silica to it. I do think that it was still a little bit thin. However, the resin leaked through. Essentially, the resin leaked through, and it was sticking to my table. I came down a few hours later, I could see it sticking, and so I was thinking, I moved it basically, and it's set without sticking. However, I would like a way to be able to do this without it sticking, obviously. So I've got a few different methods that I'm going to try out today. So I've got method 1 is going to be just put down a cling wrap and stick to it. Now, I'm sure the epoxy is going to stick to that cling wrap. This is pretty much the method out of the book. It says to put down plastic and then put this on top. The epoxy that leaks through is going to stick to the plastic, and that's going to be quite hard to clean up. I feel that when you try to sand that up, it's just going to gum up the sandpaper. Another method is going to be to put down waxed or baking paper. Might peel off easier. I still don't have a massive amount of confidence in that. Third option is to put down the baking paper and then just put down a coating of wood flour. So this is the one I came up with thinking, at the end of the day, it's going to soak through, it's going to stick to the wood flour and you're going to be able to peel it off, and the wood flour and resin is going to be a lot easier to sand back than plastic or waxed paper. And lastly, I have this product here called J-Wax, which Sarah uses in her art. It is for releasing, well, it's actually for you spray it on molds that you're going to put resin in, and after it's dried, you can release the resin mold out of the resin mold. Out of the resin mold? You can release whatever you're doing out of the mold. This seems like it would work quite well. Probably quite poisonous. I mean, it literally has a label here saying dangerous to the environment. So what I'm planning to do is essentially make up a few more of these panels, do some cuts down them, use my different methods, put it together, see what works, what doesn't, before I go ahead and do the actual puzzle joints. One thing that I will say about the J-Wax, I'm just a little concerned that whatever's in this might interact with the resin and it might weaken it in some way or coat it, so when we go to do the fiberglassing on the outside it doesn't stick in that point. So if I do go with this method, I'm going to really make sure to sand this back, you know, wipe it down probably with, you know, alcohol, rubbing alcohol and that kind of thing to make sure that it's 100% gone before I use it again. So with that in mind, let's get to it.
All right, so we ran the 3 experiments with the J-Wax, the wood flour, and just the waxed paper by itself. I will say the J-Wax worked absolutely phenomenally. It really did. Nothing stuck, it just came straight off. But the wax paper worked pretty much just as well. And that's just baking paper you can just grab. The J-Wax had all kinds of warnings about how bad it was for the environment and health. So I really didn't want to use that unless I had to. I'm not wearing gloves there. I absolutely should. Please do wear protective gear. I do have my respirator on that you can see there. But yeah, you should be wearing nitrile gloves when working with epoxy. But yeah, with this in mind, the baking paper worked absolutely flawlessly, and these joins held together really well, and we should be ready to move on to working with the actual puzzle joints.
So it's always a good idea to do a dry run. As you can see here, we had some problems with the puzzle joint lifting up, and if I'd resined it down and just left it, we would have ended up with wonky boards. So I came up with an ingenious solution using some Bundaberg ginger beer to hold those joints in place. This is the dry run afterwards, after resining, hold it down again. So that was it. We resined up all of the puzzle joints using the thickened epoxy, and everything seemed to work out pretty good. Actually, after I came back, once it was dry, these were really strong joints. The only thing that was a problem at all was that the epoxy, it just seemed like it was too thick. So when I'd done my tests, I'd used a just thin regular epoxy, and it had went on really nice and stayed really see-through, not opaque at all, and you could see the weave of the fiberglass through it. In this case, it was just so thick, it covered all the tape, it filled in all the gaps. It looked kind of ugly, and I thought it looked a bit too thick, especially when we're going to go over it later. So I did just give those a light sand back before I moved on to the next step. Exciting step, because finally after this step I can stop sitting on the ground. We'll get the kayak up onto sawhorses and start actually assembling the deck. But before we can do that, we actually need to, if you think about the pieces of wood, we need to bevel the edges. So for example, the 2 sections that make up the bottom piece of the kayak, they'll need to be beveled off at a 45-degree angle each, so when they meet really nicely in the middle. The instruction booklet does recommend using a block plane for this, so a hand tool block plane. I did actually try that, and I had very little success. Now, I don't know if that's just because I haven't really used many planes for planing off angles like that before, or because my plane wasn't sharp enough, or pick a reason. In the end, what I found was just getting out the orbital sander and being careful, but just coming across the top and gradually increasing that angle and getting that nice 45-degree angle. Took a bit of time, but it certainly, in my case, was easier than using the block plane, and I ended up with really smooth, really nice angles across the kayak. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. I think that we got quite a bit done in this first episode. Went from having everything flat packed in a box to having all the boards prepared, sanded off, ready for assembly. So that's the next stop. We're going to stop. We're going to bring everything inside and you start off by assembling the bottom part of the hull and working up to the full thing before the epoxy and etc. So hopefully you enjoyed, and see you in the next episode.